So I saw a thing this week that said something like, evangelical Christianity is just radical Islam with pork and beer. And you can see what it's getting at. There's a segment of America, I'm not really sure anymore if it's a small or a large segment, but the segment wants the U.S. to be an overtly Christian state, run by the laws of the Bible, with the death penalty meted out for people who violate the Bible's laws. The parallels aren't hard to see between that and the Islamic State, whose goal is to have an overtly Muslim state, run by the laws of the Quran, with the death penalty meted out for people who violate the Quran's laws. Now, I have a couple of issues with people who want the U.S. to be an officially Christian state. First, the block of Christians in the U.S. is a group with a huge variety of beliefs on how the Bible should be interpreted and understood. And if history has taught us anything, it's that some of the most vicious wars have been fought not between two religions who revere two different holy books, but between two groups from the same religion who disagree on how their shared holy book should be interpreted. See the decades of conflict in Northern Ireland between Catholics and Protestants, or the millennia of conflicts in the Middle East between Sunni and Shia Muslims. So if evangelical Christians think making the U.S. a Christian state will lead to this lovely, peaceful situation in America, they may want to think twice. Second, we only have to read the Bible's own account of how things went with the nation of Israel, a nation the Bible says was set up by God himself. Less than 100 years after King David first took the throne, Israel fractured in half into two separate nations. The Bible account is replete with the many wicked men that ruled Israel and Judah over the years. And by 400 years after the country split into two pieces, both countries had been conquered by outside nations who worshipped other gods, and that was basically the end of that. So if that's how it went the first time God personally created a nation state, with him constantly trying to keep it on track by sending a continual succession of prophets who, by the way, could do literal miracles like resurrect people from the dead, well, if that didn't work, I'm not sure why evangelical folks think it'll go so much better the second time around. But anyway, thinking about how religious people like the Islamic State and Christian nationalists want to and do execute people for crimes against their holy books made me think about Jehovah's Witnesses and how they plan to run their nation after Armageddon when they have absolute freedom to make and enforce the laws. There's a common misconception among non-witnesses that because witnesses don't join the military and fight in wars, that they're pacifists. Well, witnesses are neutral, but they are not pacifists. They are very much pro-genocide, pro-death penalty, pro-stoning people, as long as those things are done for crimes against Bible laws. There's no witnesses today getting executed after committing adultery and being convicted by a judicial committee of elders. But that's not because witnesses think execution is wrong. It's just because it's currently illegal for a religion in America to punish its members by execution. There was a really interesting questions from readers back in the November 15th, 1952 Watchtower, and the question sent in from a Canadian witness was, in the case of where a father or mother or son or daughter is disfellowshipped, how should such person be treated by members of the family in their family relationship? The answer began, we are not living today among theocratic nations where such members of our fleshly family relationship could be exterminated for apostasy from God and his theocratic organization, as was possible and was ordered in the nation of Israel, in the wilderness of Sinai, and in the land of Palestine. It then quotes from Deuteronomy 13, where the law from God was laid down, and it talks about how if a member of your immediate family is trying to entice you and saying, let's go worship other gods, the instruction is, you must not give in to him or listen to him, nor should you show pity or feel compassion or protect him. Instead, you should kill him without fail. Your hand should be the first to come upon him to put him to death, and the hand of all the people afterward. After quoting that passage, it goes on a bit regretfully, I would say. Being limited by the laws of the worldly nation in which we live, and also by the laws of God through Jesus Christ, we can take action against apostates only to a certain extent that is consistent with both sets of laws. So it's kind of our hands are tied at the moment kind of situation. The organization agrees that death is the appropriate penalty for disfellowshipped ones, but it's currently not legal to do that. And then they write a really breathtaking sentence. The law of the land and God's law through Christ forbid us to kill apostates, even though they be members of our own flesh and blood family relationship. So the governing body is saying, look, if there's anyone we should be allowed to kill, it should at least be members of our own family. I think this, more than anything, gives a glimpse at what Jehovah's Witnesses really teach. It gives an idea of how callous and cold the men at Bethel headquarters are. Now, to what extent does that attitude filter down into rank and file witnesses? Well, as I think about my many years as a witness, I wouldn't say I was looking forward to seeing my classmates and workmates die at Armageddon. I wasn't, jumping up and down, gleefully clapping my hands. It was more like I believed that non-witnesses deserved to die. If they didn't take their stand for Jehovah, it was right that they died. They had their chance, and now they had to face the penalty. They had to die. Now, is the governing body of today still as callous as the men who wrote that Questions from Readers answer in the 1952 Watchtower? Well, a few years ago, the story of Josiah was chosen as the Bible drama for the annual summer convention of Jehovah's Witnesses. Part of the Josiah story is them finding the book of the law as they were repairing the temple, and Josiah has the law code read aloud to the entire nation. Now, obviously, the Mosaic Law is very long. Not all of it could be included in the drama. So what section did the governing body choose to reenact? Well, wouldn't you know, it's those verses from Deuteronomy 13 that were quoted in that 1952 Watchtower. They spent a ton of money and effort filming this scene in order to send a very specific message to witnesses today.
If your brother, or your son, or your daughter, or your cherished wife, or closest companion should try to entice you in secrecy, saying, "Let us go and serve other gods," you must not give in to him or listen to him, nor should you show pity or feel compassion or protect him. Instead, you should kill him without fail.
That's such an icky scene to watch.
Because of the implication.
But what we're seeing is what the governing body really thinks about ones who are disfellowshipped. They deserve to die for breaking the rules the governing body has instituted, which, by the way, many of these rules don't actually exist at all in the Bible. And more than that, these people don't just deserve to die. Witness family members should be ready to kill the members of their immediate family who leave Jehovah. Your son, your daughter, your cherished wife. Jehovah's Witnesses don't currently teach that witnesses will have to kill their unbelieving family at Armageddon. They do, however, teach that the governing body and the rest of the 144,000 will participate in the killing. So, David Splain or Jacob Rumpf, for example, will be killing your son, your daughter, your cherished wife that's left the truth. That said, it's notable that during Israel's conquest of the Promised Land, in most cases, Jehovah didn't miraculously wipe out the inhabitants. No, the Israelites, who previously had been, brick makers and slaves, definitely not trained soldiers, they had to pick up swords and kill the Canaanites themselves, one stab at a time. Will witnesses of the great crowd similarly take part in the slaughter at Armageddon, having to learn the modern-day equivalent of Israelite swords, maybe AR-15 rifles and Glock 19 handguns? When addressing this question, Watchtower literature typically quotes 2 Chronicles 20:17, "You will not need to fight this battle. Take your position, stand still, and see the salvation of Jehovah in your behalf." But does that verse really have a greater fulfillment, a secondary future meaning which can be applied to Armageddon? The current teaching of Jehovah's Witnesses is yes. But it's also true that new light could be released at any moment, which makes that current understanding obsolete. What's definitely true is that while Jehovah's Witnesses can't literally kill their apostate family members today, they can figuratively kill them by shunning them, by cutting them off from the family in every way possible.
Shocking insolence. I would have terminated her immediately.
I can't do that anymore. The best I could do was fire her.
That 1952 Watchtower says, "A father may not legally dismiss his minor child from his household because of apostasy or disfellowshipping, and a minor child or children may not abandon their father or their mother just because he becomes unfaithful to God in his theocratic organization. The parent must, by laws of God and of man, fulfill his parental obligations to the child or children as long as they are dependent minors. And the child or children must render filial submission to the parent as long as legally underage, or as long as being without parental consent to depart from the home. Of course, if the children are of age, then there can be a departing and breaking of family ties in a physical way, because the spiritual ties have already snapped. What's notable reading this article is that in 1952, being disfellowshipped and apostasy were basically the same thing. They were on the same level. That is no longer the case. In response to their deregistration as a religion in Norway, largely because of shunning, Jehovah's Witnesses introduced a number of changes this year, 2024, to their disfellowshipping practices. These were explained in the August 2024 study edition of the Watchtower magazine. But while it did soften to an extent how ones who are disfellowshipped for sexual immorality are treated, none of these changes apply to apostates, the people who choose to leave the religion for reasons of conscience. The article said, therefore, if a person is actively promoting apostate teachings or other wrongdoing, the elders would not arrange to visit him. Of course, there is hope that he will come to his senses. Until that happens, though, we would neither greet such a person nor invite him to attend a congregation meeting. The organization is especially trying to soften how it handles baptized minors, which was one of the main issues with disfellowshipping the Norwegian government had. The article says, what about baptized minors, those under 18 years of age, who engage in serious wrongdoing? The body of elders will arrange for 2 elders to meet with the minor and his Christian parents. So theoretically, a teen 17 or younger who, for example, has sex will now be unlikely to be disfellowshipped. Punishment will be left mainly in the hand of the child's parents. Of course, it's a much different story once they turn the ripe old age of 18. In the letter that Watchtower sent to the Norwegian government saying the deregistration should be reversed after the August Watchtower was published, they said, consequently, it will be even rarer for a baptized minor who has committed a serious sin to be removed from the congregation. But what jumped out to me when these changes were announced in 2024 is that an exception was carved out for kids who commit thought crime. What do I mean? Well, the new softer policies only apply to minors engaged in quote-unquote serious wrongdoing, which in 99% of cases refers to sexual sins. But what about a kid being raised as a witness who dares to decide he no longer believes it's the true religion? Or maybe it's a kid who got baptized due to all the social pressure exerted by her parents in the congregation.
If they're old enough to understand the need for dedication and baptism, and like some used to say, well, I don't think I'm old enough, and I tell parents, because we raise sons, we know how it works. I said, okay. And one just got a little upset, and I've used it several times. I'll tell you what, you tell them, okay, when you turn 16, I don't know about your state, but no driver's license. Oh, no, I'm ready. I am ready. I know I can handle a car when I'm 16. But you can't dedicate your life to get baptized, huh? Now, we never force it, but don't swallow that business.
Maybe it's not even that she decided it's not the true religion. She just doesn't feel like it's for her. Maybe that some of the rules are kind of stupid, and she just wants to quit the religion and go to university to be a physician. Well, now we're talking about cases of apostasy. And for apostasy, all these changes to soften disfellowshipping are null and void.
For good reason. John strongly directed Christians not even to greet such a person because of his contaminating influence. Therefore, if a disfellowshipped individual is a known apostate or someone who actively promotes wrongdoing, the elders would not visit him. Neither would individual Christians greet such a person or invite him to attend a congregation meeting.
It's now a situation in the religion that a teen committing thought crime receives the harshest treatment. So a 16-year-old witness who, say, is arrested for shoplifting gets minimal discipline from their parents, whereas a 15-year-old who is keeping every rule, but they're thinking the wrong thoughts about the religion, they will be expelled from the congregation, spiritually killed by their parents, and can look forward to being kicked out of the home the second they turn 18, since at that age, as the 1952 Watchtower said, there can finally be a departing and breaking of family ties in a physical way. It's weird how these changes to the disfellowshipping actually make the religion look worse than ever. It really makes it clear what's most important to the leadership. It's not whether a member is a thief, a murderer, a terrorist, a pedophile, an embezzler. That's all okay. Worst case, you're removed from full fellowship for 90 days. Jehovah's Witnesses save their bitterest vitriol for those who commit the crime of disloyalty, who make the decision they no longer want to be a witness. And this holds if it's a 13-year-old girl or a grown adult.
Jehovah and Jesus are using the faithful and discreet slave to feed us spiritually. So we owe our loyalty to that slave.
There's a lot of smart kids being raised as witnesses. You can go on the XJW subreddit and see posts almost every day from 13, 14, 15-year-old kids who are deconstructing their religion and starting to plan their escape. Heck, I didn't even know the XJW subreddit existed until I was almost 40. These kids today are really sharp. This all raises the question, do Jehovah's Witnesses believe it's fundamentally wrong for a child to leave their parents' religion? As you can probably guess, it's a double standard that they think it's awesome when kids leave the religion they were raised in to join Jehovah's Witnesses. A 1959 Watchtower said, "But what should a person do when he becomes convinced that the religion he inherited is the wrong form of worship, that its teachings are untrue, and that its leaders are blind guides who are leading him into the way of divine disapproval? Would it be wrong for him to go against the wishes of his parents and of the community by changing his religion? Or would it be wrong for him not to change?" But when it comes to a witness kid going against the wishes of his parents and the community and leaving the religion, the full old school shunning kicks in. And it doesn't take much to get disfellowshipped for apostasy these days. The 2024 article mentions such minor actions as a kid deconstructing their religious beliefs on a personal blog or in a post on social media. Brutally punishing minors for thought crime is very much alive and well in the Jehovah's Witness religion today.
Ben and I have always enjoyed attending the meetings. But lately, it's been difficult. Something was missing. Our son. Our son Levi was no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I kept wondering how he was doing. Was he okay? Then, as hard as the past few weeks had been, it just got harder. I knew what the Bible said about quit mixing in company with anyone who is not living according to Christian standards. But I never thought that scripture would one day apply to me. That night, after the meeting, I told Ben about the text I received from Levi. I told him everything. How I miss Levi so much, but that I also wanted to be loyal to Jehovah, like Korah's sons. We agreed to continue to put our trust in Jehovah and stay loyal to him. It's been 5 years now.
What helped Gabriella overcome this difficult challenge? For example, when she received a text message from her son, she applied scriptural counsel to her personal circumstances. The good example of Korah's sons gave her added motivation so as not to allow her feelings for her son to dictate her actions. Instead, she was firm in her loyalty to Jehovah.
It's funny because witnesses frequently cite the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 18, as a correct and just principle, that every human deserves the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, including the freedom to change his religion or belief. They just believe it applies to everyone except Jehovah's Witnesses, whether witness kids or adults, folks who just want to leave the religion without being punished.
But that made me think, am I a hypocrite?
It was nice to see that in responding to that letter from Watchtower asking for the deregistration to now be reversed, Norwegian officials quickly saw the superficial nature of the changes. They saw that witness minors are definitely still subject to harsh penalties under witness policies. In their response, they wrote, Depriving a teenager under the age of 18 of general social contact with friends and family/relatives outside the household, and in addition predicting to him that almost all contact with the family and the household will cease when he becomes of age and moves away from home, is, in the ministry's view, compatible with descriptions of negative social control and psychological violence. Cf. the assessments in the state administrators and the ministry's decisions. The ministry then sees that this could be the consequence for minors if, for example, they have caressed their lover without regretting it afterwards, or have made use of their right to withdraw from the religious community. It's a weird contradiction that, for as much as Jehovah's Witnesses talk about peace and brotherhood, it is, at its core, in many ways, a violent religion. At the moment, it's limited to psychological violence against members and ex-members. But in the future, Jehovah's Witnesses hope and teach that that will convert to physical violence against their enemies. And even after Armageddon, the violence will continue. Anyone who survives Armageddon or is resurrected and later starts to feel that maybe being a witness isn't for them, they'll be immediately executed. It's an interesting conception of what paradise is, for sure. It's funny that many folks find more peace after they stop associating with the religion. It might be through meditation, through another religion less draconian in its outlook, having more time to spend in nature, through exercise, just the freedom of not feeling obligated to believe the exact same thing everyone else around you believes. It's kind of a nice feeling, you know? Well, that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more down the road, and we'll catch you all on the next one. Take care now.